Tonight on Joy News Prime, parties at Forum on 1992 Constitution agree the Supreme Law has failed to realize for the ordinary Ghanaian the core aspirations of equal opportunities and prosperity for all and curbing corruption.
I think that the problem is not with the structural parameters of the Constitution. The problem is in us as a people.
Credit ratings agency downgrades Ghana to B- with a negative outlook, further worsening the country's already distressed debt situation. We'll find out what's in the report and what it means for the ordinary Ghanaian. Electro Chem, the company accused of being behind the armed attack on Radio Ada, has dissociated itself from the incident.
And it's unfortunate. It's bad news to us, but we have no direct or indirect link to the development.
We hear from victims of the attack who say they are prepared to give clues to the police to help them in arresting the perpetrators. Joy News Prime is on Joy Prime as well as on your DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. Thanks for choosing us. I'm Israeli, and this is your home of independent, fearless, credible journalism. Do stay tuned in. Ghana's constitution is said to be on the verge of impending death if urgent steps are not taken to make significant changes. This is the verdict of economic policy analyst Senyo Hosi, who on Friday joined legal brains and politicians to assess the country's supreme law. All parties agreed with the key challenges of corruption, inequality of opportunities, and a lack of prosperity as core aspirations the constitution has failed to realize for the ordinary Ghanaian. Joseph Akable has more from the Constitution Day lecture organized by the One Ghana movement.
Policy analyst Senyo Hosi first laid out what he considered key challenges making the Constitution problematic document that risk being rejected.
The question we will be interrogating today will be whether and how the 1992 Constitution and the actions of its operators, you and I seated here, deliver on the demands of the blessings and values. I am convinced that if the actors of the Constitution, enabled by the nature of its framing, deplete hope, I repeat, hope, for we the people to realize the assured blessings of liberty, equality of opportunity, and prosperity, the 92 Constitution shall lose its luster and inevitably lose its last leg, which is us the people. And this will happen with thousands of youth who are today about 70% unemployed or underemployed, calling for his demise. Unfortunately, I can't say it any better. The clock is ticking.
He believes depoliticization of governance is the solution.
We must limit the dependence on the integrity and personality of our leadership. And just as Barack Obama said, Africa doesn't need strong men, it needs strong institutions, end quote. It is so admirable when you see Australia's political class in disarray, and yet having no impact on the delivery of public services and economic prosperity at all. They can fight. The life is going on. You entertain a presidential election petition in Ghana, and the whole public service will sit into coma. This is not a town where institutions work. So today I propose to you a new democracy. A democracy, a Ghanacracy, a consensual democracy, not an adversarial democracy. A democracy of a loser wins some and not a winner takes all. A democracy that makes politics a call and moment of service and not a career of total economic dependence. A democracy that promotes the strengthening of our institutions and reflects the inclusiveness of our professionals and people. A democracy in which being out of government means nothing to your economic sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, a democracy that promotes meritocracy.
Former Deputy AG Dr. Dominic Ayende, who represented the minority leader, said the challenge is not with the Constitution, but rather political culture.
I think that the problem is not with the structural parameters of the Constitution. The problem is in us as a people. We are the ones who are not operating the Constitution in a way that will lead or conduce to equitable development of the country. So this is an example on this, which is a developmental issue. The directive principles of state policy do provide, for instance, that every president or every government must, as much as possible, implement, programs and projects left over by the last government. So go to Saglemi and tell me why we have invested millions of dollars in a housing program that has been abandoned. Of course, it is not only the NPP that is guilty of this. My own party is also guilty of it. And that is where we have to begin to build consensus around the fundamental values of the Constitution. That, sovereignty resides in the people of Ghana, in whose name and for whose benefit the powers of government must be exercised in accordance with this Constitution. Majority
Leader Osei Mensah Bonsu has been sharing his own views on what he believes needs to be done.
We must strengthen Parliament. We must reposition Parliament in order to be able to confront the executive. We are not doing that. And that's why members of Parliament are behaving like timorous souls. It's not only members of Parliament whose parties are in the executive. Even members of Parliament whose parties are in the opposition. They are all timorous souls.
It's not clear what practical steps government intends to take on the issue of reforming the Constitution.
The Ashanti region has recorded 73 fire incidents just 2 weeks into the new year. Fire officials describe the situation as alarming. There's more in this report.
Records from the fire service indicate that 1,111 fire incidents were recorded in 2021. This is an 11.4% reduction from the 1,254 incidents recorded at the end of 2020. But the fire service is worried at the 73 fire incidents recorded in the region since the beginning of this year. The last incident killed a 65-year-old man at Kronom in the Swami municipality. DO3 Peter Adair is the public relations officer.
By 12 January 2022, we've had 80 incidents. 80 incidents, making up 73. It is 73 fires, 7 accidents so far. In fact, comparing it to, for us, we wish that there wouldn't be any fire incidents at all. So it's actually a cause to worry, and that's why we have actually put in measures to curtail it.
DO3 Peter Adair says electrical fault, gas leakage, negligence, and other human factors have been major causes of fires. The public has been advised to adhere to safety measures, especially in this dry season.
2020, we had, by close of 2020, we had 1,254 fires. By close of 2021, we had 1,111 fires. So comparing 2020 to 2021, you realize that there was 11.4% decrease in the fire and related incidents in the region. This is actually a plus for us, and we want to advise the general public that they should take all the precautions there are when they are handling fires or they are undertaking any activity that can lead to fire. When you lose control of it, it can cause mayhem. So we advise people to be extra cautious, take all the precautions when undertaking any activity, and also
access routes, poor nature of roads, respect to siren, and general poor attitude of the public remain a challenge to the fire department.
Right, so here's a breakdown of the data that was shared with us by the Ashanti Region Fire Service. So these are fires for the Ashanti region, 73 since the beginning of the year. That is 2022, January 2022. And then for the from 2020 to 2022 January, we have a total of 2,438 fires in all. Now the next slide is just going to break it all down. So for 2020, we had 1,254 fire incidents. And then in 2021, as you heard the fire officer indicate, there was a decline to 1,111. But January alone, for the first few days of January, we're looking at 73, and we would have to see how that goes for the rest of the year. Hopefully, it's going to get a lot better. Now, Electrochem Ghana Limited, the company contracted to mine salt in the Songo Lagoon, has dissociated itself from Thursday's violent attack on Radio Adan, which led to the destruction of the radio station and the brutal assault on some staff of the station, including at least one journalist there. The victims have been nursing their injuries while the radio station works vigorously to remobilize to go live on air. Now, prior to Thursday's incident, the attackers had threatened to unleash a series of attacks on the radio station if it continued carrying reports and producing any form of programming about the Songo Lagoon project. Now, joining me on phone is my colleague Kwame Yanka. Now, Kwame, what would you say is the level of distraction when you visited early this afternoon?
Well, Israel, for a typical radio station with its studios where it sends out its programs from, you have the whole console being dismantled, computers, any other thing that makes it possible for the program for the radio station to transmit its programs, were destroyed. Doors to the studio, any other thing that these attackers or assailants laid their hands on had to go down. And this was a very this is how they got to the studio and then destroyed any other thing they laid their hands on. But as I speak to you, they are off air. At least in the last 24 hours, the company has been off air, or Radio Adan has been off air. But then management is trying to pool resources, also with the assistance of the Member of Parliament for the area, Comfort Doyo Kujo, to just mobilize some resources and then put the studio back in shape. But it's unclear when this could be done for the station to be back on air. So until this is done, listeners of Radio Adan would have to remain in the dark, I should say.
All right, when you say that they're putting resources together to get back on air, are you talking about money, and what is the money going to be used for, considering the fact that the equipment has been damaged? Can they replace the equipment, and how quickly can they do that?
Okay, so money-wise, it's difficult to lay hands on the exact amount here. But then, when it comes to equipment, making up any radio station, yes, you may have some backup here and there, but then to bring it all together, to scratch, then it will take more than probably a day or two to do this, and then as to whether they may even get the exact standard they would want this to be able to transmit their programs. But like I said, management is not living it to its current state. It is doing its best with whichever help it is going to get from beyond the station to make sure that their programs are back on air as and when they're able to do this.
All right, the victims of this attack must be quite traumatized. Tell us about their psychological and emotional state when you visited.
Surely, Israel. In fact, the presenter who was on air at the time of the incident, I must say that at this point, he feels very helpless. Anytime he gets to today, when we met him at the radio station, he led us to the very studio where he sat at the time of the attack. And in fact, Kole Ajauto, that's the name, Kole Ajauto, he said anytime he gets close to the studio, he feels like a burden has been placed on his shoulders. And until he's able to do this or get psychological help to get this out of his head, coming back to the station to work as a presenter, it will be difficult because as of yesterday, he was contemplating on resigning over his safety. It was unclear where the next attack could come from or when the next attack could be. Because this is the very first of its kind in over 2 decades of operation. So for the company, Ajauto Kole, according to him, must do everything possible to psych them up to ensure that they are back to themselves to be able to just sit behind the console, behind the microphones, and then churn out all these interesting programs that the downgrade communities have been accustomed to in the last 2 decades.
Oh!
Well, for now, I'm not feeling fine. It seems I carry a heavy load on my head due to the beatings they gave me yesterday. I don't know, but I'm not feeling fine. Both physically and then everything, I'm not feeling fine. What they did to me yesterday, I decided to quit this job. Yes, I decided to quit this job. But we'll see the steps to take next.
Oh, okay, so let's take it back. At which point of the program did these men under the environment, at what time did they break in?
Around 11:30 a.m.
Okay.
I was hosting a program, a segment, and so the people calling in and then share their views concerning the program going on. Suddenly, I saw some 7, 8 young birdsmen coming in. So you see, this is a community radio which is open to community people. Anybody can come here at any given time with his or her businesses.
Now, managers of the station have called on the police to step in and take charge. Kwame, tell us more about what the managers have been saying. Now, Kwame, if you can hear me, tell us more about what the managers have been saying to the police, especially as far as investigations are concerned. Right, we seem to have lost Kwame there, but let's bring you that soundbite.
A group of violent men came between the 7 to 10. When they entered into the radio station, they asked who is Noah. The team that used program on the Congo Lagoon. So they held 2 of the workers. They made them to kneel down on the floor, including 2 clients who came to the station to record their message. After that, they went straight to the on-air studio. They used their leg to break into the studio, damage the door, and then they started all the broadcasting machines over there. The live presenter on air by then, Mr. Gabriel Koliajauto, has been pulled out of the console and beaten mercilessly. We have been producing programs on the Songo Lagoon that has been leased to Electrochem. We have been serializing the documents of the lease agreements, the MOE, etc. Yeah, so we think that was why they are looking for us. Before they left, they said we should stop broadcasting materials on the Songo Lagoon. That was the warning that they gave us. They are Tiktol and Jans. One of them spoke Dangbe, but the rest spoke English. The one is holding a pistol and a handcuff. That person is in the fake military attire. There are no tags name tags on it, and so we sent the victim, our staff, to the police, and then they gave us a police medical form. He has been sent to the hospital, treated and discharged. Now organizing to present a formal police report. Media Commission is also there. We will also report to them.
Now, responding to the issue, the Corporate Communications and Public Relations Manager of Electrochem Ghana Limited, Henking Ajase Kojo, said the company has no hand in the incident.
It's news to me, same as it is to you. I read it on social media a few minutes ago. Electrochem has no interest in this development, actually. It's rather unfortunate. The attack on the radio station is unfortunate. It's bad news to us, but we have no direct or indirect link to the development.
Now, a member of parliament for the Adan constituency, Comfort Doye Gansa, has condemned the incident, demanding the police arrest and prosecute persons behind it. She has also been making some promises to the local radio station.
All my worries are we should stop attacking journalists. We should stop attacking Radio Adan. Yesterday should be the end, and we are seeking for protection for the radio station. The management already have security men on the ground that I think is not enough. So because of that, I'm here today, and after speaking to the media, I'll meet the management, and I'm going to support them with cash to install both CCTV cameras and BIFA security and repair the equipment that have been vandalized.
Right, before we continue with the news, there's some news coming through that Ghana has scored its first goal in the ongoing AFCON tournament. Dede Ayew is the one who got that goal for Ghana. So let's see how the rest of the game goes. But moving on, ratings agency Fitch has downgraded Ghana's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating to B- with a negative outlook. The rating sends signals to the market that investors should be particularly wary of lending to the country, and comes on the back of concerns by investors captured in a Bloomberg News report published this week. Let me share with you some of the critical highlights of that report, or I will bring that to you in a bit. All right, so there we have it on your screens, and it says the downgrade of Ghana's IDRs, a negative outlook, reflect the sovereign's loss of access to international capital markets in second half 2021 following a pandemic-related surge in government debt. This comes in the context of uncertainty about the government's ability to stabilize debt and against the backdrop of tightening global financing conditions. In our view, Ghana's ability to deliver on planned fiscal consolidation efforts could be hindered by the heavier reliance on domestic debt issuance with higher interest costs in the context of an already exceptionally high interest expenditure to revenue ratio. Ghana's effective loss of market access to international bond markets increases risks to its ability to meet medium-term financing needs. In our view, Ghana has sufficient liquidity and other available external financing options to cover near-term debt servicing without Eurobond issuance. However, there is a risk that non-resident investors in the local bond market could sell their holdings, particularly if confidence in the government's fiscal consolidation strategy further weakens, placing downward pressure on its reserve. Now, joining us for some analysis or to explain to us what exactly this means is Professor John Gachi. He is Dean of the UCC School of Business. Good evening to you, Professor Gachi. So we've seen this rating downgrade by Fitch. What are we to make of it?
The essence of rating is to indicate to the markets as to whether the country is able to pay in the medium to long term the indebtedness to investors. And as at this point, Fitch is saying that there is uncertainty as to whether the credit worthiness of Ghana is at that level that payment of indebtedness to creditors will be assured. So what it means is that there is a downgrade of our credit worthiness and that has implication for our domestic economic management and participation in the international bond market.
Now, the report also goes on to say that it's unlikely that Ghana can return to the capital markets, international capital market, to raise funding. Essentially, is it that we can't go at all, or if we go, we'll be punished for it, as in we'd have to pay more interest?
Well, as it is, we are around a junk bond status. What that means is that when you attempt to go to the capital market, the only reason why you have access to capital is because you are going to pay a very huge cost for that. And that is what it means. And already our interest cost is going up significantly, which undermine fiscal consolidation and even investment in key sectors of our economy. And that has actually been a signal to the international market. So we can't go to the international market, but we can only access capital at very huge cost, which is not in the interest of our country.
They also go on to say that even for the domestic market, where government is likely to end up borrowing, there are those foreign investors who are likely to let go of their bonds. What would the implication also be?
Well, I think the implication is that if those who are holding our bond from foreign countries decide to call off their bond earlier than maturity, that will put pressure on the economy to pay them. And especially we are going to be paying them in foreign currency. That will put pressure on our reserve. And there's one tricky thing about the reserve. When they are reporting the reserve, they are only reporting the gross international reserve. But that is not the reserve available to be utilized. There are part of the reserve that by law we cannot use. For example, stabilization fund is part of the reserve. The heritage fund is part of the reserve. By law, you cannot use those parts of our reserve. So we should be thinking about what we call the net international reserve, and that is not enough to cater for this situation. So we are actually in a very precarious situation that we need to put heads together to deal with the mess we find ourselves in.
What will the implications also be for our ability to shore up the Ghana cedi from depreciating?
Of course, the moment you start depleting your international reserve, it puts pressure on the currency. It becomes weaker. And you know, there is a component of our debt that comes from depreciation of the cedi. And what it means is that our debt portfolio will go up as a result of depreciation of the currency, and that will shoot up the debt to GDP ratio and make the outlook more precarious and unattractive.
What are the options available to government? Should we be looking at an IMF?
Well, going to IMF is a decision that the government ought to make, but all that this rating and all the analysis is telling us that we have gone wrong in debt accumulation. We should slow down on debt accumulation. We should prioritize our borrowing. Our borrowing should be productive as opposed to what it used to be in the past. And then we should also prioritize our expenditure. This is a time that we should.
I seem to be having some challenges with the connection to Professor John Gachi there, but he was highlighting what government needs to do to resolve the situation. He indicates that when it comes to going to the IMF, it's one of the, well, options available to government, but certainly that will also have implications. Looks like we're unable to bring back Professor John Gachi. So we will take a break here, but one of the other things in the report that I'd like to share with you says government debt reached estimated 83% of GDP end 2021. We forecast government debt to remain on upward path through 2025. Ghana will be unable to issue on international capital markets in 2022, and prospects for doing so in 2023 are uncertain. You're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break. We're bringing you business next Tuesday's journey.
In business, we begin with the benchmark value discount and the impact it is having on local industry, especially when Wilmar Africa has shut down one of its oil production plants, blaming it on the policy and harsh economic discount. In a letter to the Food and Allied Workers Union, Wilmar Africa said its oil marketing production division faces imminent closure as it is unable to compete with cheaper imports. Of course, reacting to the letter, the General Secretary of the Food and Allied Workers Union, Ken Kumsin, is appealing to government that based on the negative impact of the benchmark policy on jobs and survival of the industry, government should, as a matter of urgency, implement the removal of the policy. He spoke on Business Live.
A product that is currently being produced locally, and then you give an incentive to an importer to import the same product without a corresponding subsidy or tax relief measure, so that the local manufacturer can compete with such an importer. What you are telling everybody is that this country should run an import or even convert this country into a big supermarket, where all of us will shut down the company, go home, and then import and sell. What happened in the press conference, and it was just a simple appeal to government, that the benchmark value policy, prior to its introduction, the local industries were competing with this import product without any problem. After the introduction of the benchmark policy, the difference, after you have put in all the costs, the ship costs, the duties, and so on and so forth, you have the import selling less 20 to 40 Ghana cedis than the local manufacturers. What we are asking government to do is that this policy is a disincentive to local production. It defeats its own policy to encourage local industry. For that matter, government should take immediate steps to reverse the benchmark policy to ensure, one, that jobs are protected, two, revenue that government itself collects from these companies are also guaranteed. This is the call, and this is what we appeal, and this is what we are saying government should do.
We still stay with the benchmark policy because even as government begins broader consultation with stakeholders, the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, has admonished its leadership and other parties, including the Association of Ghana Industries, to put aside selfish interests for a win-win situation for all stakeholders, including that of government. Speaking to Joy Business, the president of GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obin, says the association is venturing into discussions with an objective standpoint and not an entrenched position.
Trading community, we are very humbled with the gesture of government, and we are grateful for what government have done, and that we are going on this negotiation with open mind. We are going to be very objective to make sure that government is compensated. AGI industries are also compensated, as well as the trading community. We also being compensated with the consuming public. That's the mindset that we haven't. And we are pleading with the AGI to also come with an open mind without being entrenched, as is being shown, depicted. Because if they get entrenched, nothing also stops us from getting entrenched. Because we are all part of the nation. So it shouldn't be said that one side was listening to against the other. All that you are saying, he did not prove anything.
All right.
Because he only confirmed that the benchmark was even good for them, because they are telling the government to maintain the benchmark policy for them.
Away from the benchmark policy, government has been charged to focus more on efficient tax measures in order to achieve the 2022 revenue target. Now, this is coming on the back of fears that revenue may suffer this year following the indefinite suspension of the reversal of benchmark value policy on some imports. Now, government is targeting about 100 billion cedis from tax revenue and grant in 2022. The finance consultant, Dr. Daniel Sedo, as well as economist Professor Peter Korte, have been sharing their thoughts on this matter with George Rafi on PM Express, the business edition.
It really is the way we look at these things. There's no difference between us and government. We are all working for the same interests. You need the government needs the businesses. So how do we operate as one unit and be very efficient? Prof talk about efficiency. If you look at this economy, a major problem is efficiency.
Both government and businesses.
Unfortunately, the public sector inject the private sector with a high level of inefficiency. We can debate that. So in my view, the government agencies should be working with the companies. Prof talk about record keeping. Sometimes they don't even understand the issues. So GRA, so far,
I think that understanding the tax system is a hell for a lot of these small, medium-sized enterprises.
Correct.
It's not a problem.
It is.
You work in a lot of companies, you advise a lot of companies as well.
Yes, it is. So GRA should set up a unit where they go help some of these institutions. Now, if we are efficient, manage our costs very well, our profit will go up.
The government comes in terms of taxation, in terms of regulations, in terms of providing utilities, constant supply of utilities, and many others. And in all of this, in the midst of COVID, in the midst of the pandemic, you ought to strike a good balance. So taxes, for instance. How do you pay your taxes in this environment? Luckily these days we've gone digitalization, so it's much easier to pay or file your tax online. But it depends on the revenue flow as well. Are you making the right amount of revenue that you could pay your taxes? If not, then you ought to get your accountant or whoever to show your books in a good manner. So keeping proper records is very critical in this moment. Otherwise, if you don't have the records, the taxman will estimate your revenue for you, and that can put some people or some businesses in trouble.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on the Joy News Prime with me, Oreko Wampofo. I'm sure you are struggling to contain your smiles at the moment as the Black Stars are currently leading against Gabon in their second AFCON group game. The four-time African champions got their goal through Andre Ayew in the first half, a strike from 25 yards after he received a pass from Arsenal midfielder Thomas Partey. In terms of the starting 11 for that game, Milovan Rivert made just one change to the team that faced Morocco. Daniel Kofitre replaced Joseph Painsil. And let's just take a look at the starting 11 as the game approaches halftime. And so Wollacott starts in goal. And then we have Andri Yadom at right back with Barbara Mann as left back. Daniel Amate and Alexander Djiku starts in the centre-back pairing as Baba Idrisu and Thomas Partey would be in midfield. Jordan Ayew started on the wing, and then Kamaldeen Suleiman on the other wing as well as Daniel Kofitre plays in behind Andre Ayew, who scores his 10th goal of the Africa Cup of Nations. That means that he's now scored in 6 different tournaments, and he joins a legendary list of 4 players. Asamoah Samuel Eto'o, and then Kalusha, the Zambian. All 4 players have scored in 6 different Africa Cup of Nations tournaments. Andre Ayew himself, still Ghana's leading goal scorer. Remember, Asamoah has 8 and Andre Ayew has 10. That's the most by any Ghanaian in the Africa Cup of Nations. Of course, Ghana has to hold on to have any good chance of qualifying as second place team in Group C of the Africa Cup of Nations. However, what we did learn from the earlier game is that the Black Stars, no matter what, would not be able to finish top of Group C just because of the tiebreaker in the group stages of the Africa Cup of Nations. With the group stages, we see not goal difference, but head-to-head being used. And since Morocco beat Ghana already, they have 2-0 victory this afternoon against Comoros, means that they go to 6 points, and the maximum the Black Stars can get from now on is 6 points. So that means that Morocco themselves would finish top of the group. But speaking of their 2-0 victory, let's check highlights of the game. The latest from Group C is that Ghana are currently leading the Panthers of Gabon by 1-0 thanks to a strike from captain Andre Ayew. I'll be back with the second part of the sports segment with highlights of the game. Hopefully it would be 3 points for the Black Stars. Up next is Showbiz.
All right, time for Showbiz, and Becky Bex is here in Black Stars jersey because Black Stars is leading by a goal.
By a goal, hopefully.
Is that what got you to wear the jersey?
No, I've been wearing this since morning.
Okay.
Yeah, so we wish them all the best, by the way. But I had a conversation with Kofi Kinata on E-Vibes.
Okay.
And also
Kofi Kinata, one of, one of Ghana's very excellent songwriters.
And I had the opportunity to have a conversation with his senior headmaster, Emmanuel Asari, and he told us about how he was a bit stubborn back in school, but well, they're still proud of him. And also the fact that
he looks stubborn, actually.
He's very stubborn.
Like a really troublesome
he never stays in school. That's according to Mr. Asari. And also the fact that they owe him. So there was actually a performance, and it was together with Castro. Castro got paid. He never got paid. So, well, they're saying that they owe Kofi Kinata.
That he was a stubborn student.
Is it because he has become a star today?
No, but we say that generally Tanka students, they are difficult to handle. And he was not an exception. You know, running away under gutter and all that. He was part of that Fiokuma boys who would come to school, wouldn't want to stay until 6:30, be in a classroom for some few hours here and there, and then by the time you realize it's off.
Oh, wow.
You got another gutter and then off he goes. But during co-curricular activities, you will see more of him.
Did you notice the talent?
Yes, I would say during our entertainment programs, most often than not, we allow them to do their freestyle. That's where we realize that he has that talent, because you mount the stage and do some freestyles and the students will be cheering him. So we thought that that might be his calling.
From 2006, right, to 2021, the difference is massive. He's won so many awards. What are you proud? I want to know how you feel. I mean, as the school feels about Kofi.
Yes, if we say even proud, that would be even an understatement. I believe that the school is massively happy about what he has done for himself and the portraying technical education, because we hear wherever he goes during his interview, he mentions his alma mater, and we believe that he's projecting the brand technical education. Yes, because it's this, even though he did not use it, but we believe that with him, other students are also believing that whatever they can do, if they put in a little bit of effort, they will be able to go far. After school, he came back with Castro, yes, to do some massive entertainment for us, and that's what we'll not forget, because the whole of the place were filled with students from other schools because Castro was around. But then he was not a Kofi Kinata we all know now, but he started the whole thing, and then the place was very, very much agog with a lot of excitement.
I'll have to see it, if you can show me.
Show you
the entertainment, the forecourt.
The forecourt, okay.
Yeah.
And you below so janka fire service the tanker the mechile mo rap petro na lighter deadly mekai mark tell the superstar okay baby the game boy what camera na comedy what ready in a heavy ni what you need your when you be na baba hibe.
Here we go. For those of you who don't know, I can confidently say that this was the first place Kofi Kinata performed.
Yes. Well, I remember when we had that entertainment with Castro. He was in this room.
Okay.
Yes, he was in this room, and then we called him. And I remember after the program, we were supposed to give him something, and we had nothing. We never knew Castro. The demand was a bit higher, so we have to pump in all the money for Castro. It was left with Kofi. So we told him, as for you, are our boy. So you manage this like that.
So he wasn't paid for his first performance.
Yes, and he was not.
So
really
you still owe him.
Yes, we owe him. We owe him.
Oh no.
We owe him that.
Isn't that what they call witchcraft?
By this time, they can't pay him. I'm not sure they can pay him.
No, well, if they're going to pay him what they owed him back then. So it shouldn't be much.
Ghana or 100 cities
well,
or something. Well, let me take you to Sao Tome, because there's some music. The two brothers, Kalema, who they told me about their inspiration how they create music and what they're looking out for in the music industry. They hope to come to Ghana though.
Okay.
We are inspired by the people, by the nature, the beach, and we come from Sao Tome and Principe, two small islands, and
if you start
first,
yeah. For those who know, if you start doing rap, and then after the influence from a lot of West Coast music, West Coast African music, Brazilian music, American music, and we started to, and our parents, they saw us singing, and they told us, why you guys don't mix your voice? And it was like that. We started to do restaurants, hotels in Sao Tome, and it was like that. And then now we are here.
Yeah, a lot of people came out for you guys. Looking back, would you say that your parents didn't make a mistake about getting you guys together to do music?
Yeah. Now we are sure that they made the right decision to mix us. And we are so glad to keep going and to keep focus on the music.
Okay, so Becky interviewing those guys in London, but you having interviewed Emilia Brobe on her latest track.
Next week, I'll get Emilia Brobe on the show.
Okay,
yeah,
all right,
promise.
Thank you very much. It's a promise.
Yeah.
I'll hold you to it. All right, that'll be it for Showbiz, and that'll be it for those of you who are watching on Joy Prime. But there's more news on the Joy News channel, so do stay tuned in. We'll be back in a bit. The KNUST lecturer accused of kidnapping the wife has been denied bail as the AG hints of further police investigations. The Asokwa District Court has for the second time denied bail for Dr. Wilberforce Nkrumah Agri, a lecturer at the KNUST, accused of kidnapping the wife, a staff at the Lands Commission. This comes as the Attorney General's office takes over prosecutorial duties in the case. It has emerged in court that Dr. Wilberforce Agri used the phone of his wife, Rodeling Dako Amwa, to send messages to family members, friends, and himself. Oiming Teria has more in the following report.
Counsel for the accused had prayed the court to grant bail to Dr. Agri, who has been in police custody since his arrest on October 6, 2021. The state attorney, however, said the accused, if granted bail, could interfere with police investigations since some witnesses in the case are his subordinates in the office. The court, presided by His Worship Koko Echang Owusu, insisted the bail cannot be granted due to the severity and nature of the case. This is the second time in 3 months the accused has been refused bail after a Kumasi High Court denied a similar bail application on November 16, 2021. It comes as the Attorney General's office informed the court it is yet to submit its advice after taking over prosecution of the case. A representative of the AG's office, Charles Edward Aduyirinchi, told the court the AG's advice on the matter is ready to be dispatched. Giving a hint of what could be contained in the advice, Mr. Yirinchi said the police will be required to conduct further investigations into the case in which the lecturer at KNUST is accused for the disappearance of his wife. The court adjourned hearing to January 28, 2022. Meanwhile, the lawyer for the Lands Commission, Nanaya Aduma Asantindro, is happy the AG's office has taken over prosecution of the case.
It's a step in the right direction. We trust the AG's office because we know criminal cases that have high-profile consequences. It's usually the Attorney Generals that prosecute these cases. So with the AG handling the case right now, we are confident that justice will be sought, Rhoda would be found, or the truth would prevail. It's high-profile in the sense, if you look at the personalities involved, a lecturer, a head of department, and senior lands administrative officer. It has a lot of elements pointing to kidnapping, a mysterious disappearance. The Lands Commission at a point was involved as if they had sent her on a duty. It has so many facets to it. It's a very complicated case. And considering Kumasi, we haven't had so many kidnapping cases. The few kidnapping cases have been in Accra and Takoradi. And kidnapping cases, naturally, they are cases of national importance.
Reporting from Kumasi for Joy News, Ohim Interior.
Let's do some international news now. Military junta has condemned what it refers to as a clear breach of its airspace by French military aircraft, warning of potential consequences should it happen again. This comes as France is accused of urging the European Union to impose sanctions on the military regime for failing to honor the ECOWAS timeline for a return to democratic governance. In a statement on Wednesday, the military government accused the French military plane of switching off its transponder so it could not communicate with Malian aviation authorities. The French military has meanwhile denied the claim, saying that plane's transponder had been switched to military mode. All procedures were respected and the aircraft's flight plan had been approved. Now, joining us for more on this is Dr. Kabir Adamu. He's a managing director of Beacon Consulting Limited, a renowned firm providing enterprise security risk management and intelligence solutions in Nigeria and the Sahel. Thank you very much, Doc. Now, how seriously do you think France will be taking this threat from the junta in Mali?
Thank you for having me. Very seriously, in the sense that this is a formal statement coming from a sovereign state to another sovereign state that is being hosted by that state. And in the last few weeks, the relationship between these two countries have become very frosty, starting from the announcement by the French side that they were going to reduce the number of their troop strength in Operation Barkhane, to the deployment of Russian assets, as it were, in Mali, and France's role in the imposition of the sanctions on Mali. And then, of course, the international, especially at the UN, issues that have arose, the attempt to get sanctions on Mali at the UNSC. So the relationship is definitely frosty, and for such a statement to come at this point in time, it is an escalation of, rather a de-escalation of the diplomatic relationship between the two countries, and it's something that should be taken seriously.
Do you get a sense that the sanctions imposed by the ECOWAS is making the needed impact, considering France, which is extremely influential in the sub-region, is trying to get the European Union to also impose its own sanctions?
So, it's going to be dicey in the sense that Mali is a landlocked country. It depends a lot on its neighbors for its requirements, its essentials. There are two neighboring countries that we are yet to hear from, Mauritania and Algeria, and their role in ensuring the enforcement of these sanctions will be critical. Likewise, the role of two of Mali's allies that have veto powers in the UNSC, that is Russia and China. So far, we've not heard from them except in the UNSC when both countries decided to block the attempt to impose sanctions through the UNSC. Now, no matter how effective the ECOWAS sanctions are, no matter how effective France mobilizes other countries, if these four blocks that I mentioned are not, we don't get the buy-in of them, then the effectiveness of the sanctions is going to be very loose. The third element is the porosity of African borders. In the case of Mali, Mali has a huge borderline across the different countries that it's neighboring. Now, even in times when governance was good and institutions are doing well, manning those borders have proved almost impossible. And severally, especially the crisscrossing of terrorists across the Mauritanian and the Algerian border has proven that now that it's actually economically driven, then the possibility of strong border management systems to effect these sanctions, it's almost impossible. So it's neither here nor there. There will be a lot of factors that will determine the effectiveness. However, one critical point that we shouldn't lose sight of is the drivers of the crisis in Mali. One of them is the economic circumstances that the country has found itself in. So any sanction that would increase that economic circumstance is likely to limit the popularity of the government, irrespective of whether it's a civilian or military government. So the junta, the military junta, is also conscious of this and would definitely want to take actions to de-escalate the current situation. I foresee a compromise. The 5+ years that they're asking for, they're not going to get it. I'm almost certain of that. But then somehow there's going to be a compromise on both sides, as it were.
Do you have an idea why France would send a military aircraft into that space in the first place?
There are still a significant portion of Operation Barkhane assets, both human and military assets within the region, including in Mali. And so the possibility of that military aircraft supporting one or the other, objectives of Operation Barkhane is very high. And then let's not forget, France has interests in that axis, not just in Mali, but in several countries, including in neighboring countries. So depending on what type of military aircraft it is, we don't know yet. If it's an ISR-1, an intelligence reconnaissance aircraft, then possibly that is what it's doing. If it's one that is meant to supply, whatever it is to its troops there, then maybe that's what it is. Suffice to say that France has several reasons why it is going to maintain some form of presence in Mali. And that buttresses my earlier point that it is in the interest of all sides to reach a compromise agreement.
Do you foresee the possibility that the junta may decide to evict the French troops?
Well, that has already kind of started happening. The fact that they have met some kind of agreement with the Russians, the two countries are not going to be in the same space. It's almost certain. They represent different interests, and France is already mobilizing its allies to ensure Mali does not continue with this trajectory. Mali is bent on continuing the trajectory. It needs the support of this Russian support. So it's very likely that if France does not take up the gap that it created when it decided to withdraw, Mali would continue with its rapprochement with Russia, and that friction will continue to remain until the junta hands over to a civilian government. Ejecting France is not an option for Mali. It would create more problems for it, but this type of strategic diplomatic moves to give it some form of capacity to negotiate, it would be probably its best option. If the chips are down and the sanctions remain and the popularity of the government is declining, then yes, it could take rash measures like that. We've seen it in several other countries where military juntas take actions as a result of desperation. Here too, that possibility is there if the junta becomes very desperate as a result of some of these measures by international partners.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Kabir Adamu, for joining us with your insights. Moving on, a second district court has refused to grant bail to the 3 senior high school students arrested in connection with the burning to death of a ride-hailing app driver, despite several pleas by their lawyer. Patrick Beidou, aged 18, Joseph Lord, Ni Eje Odiku, 17, and Adolphe Shun, 17, are set of Port Petrol on Boating Otri, a naval officer who drives a boat, when he refused to hand over the keys to his vehicle and set him on fire at Sekendi Bakano in the Western region. The 3 assets have confessed to police that they had wanted to steal the vehicle. Their lawyer, Joseph Evans Abeka, pleaded with the court to grant them bail since they were students who had to return to school. The prosecutor, Inspector Jennifer Champong, however, pleaded with the court that their security is at stake and that investigation is still ongoing, so they should be remanded. The defense lawyer has been speaking with the media after the court hearing.
Police presence at the Secondary District Court, where the three accused appeared in court for the second time. The three students who have been arrested in connection with the burning to death of a boat rider at Secondary Bakano arrived in court with a cloth covering their faces. The three accused were escorted by armed and unarmed police officers. At least 2 state vehicles drove in a convoy to transport the three accused, who are making their second appearance in court. The three, during their first appearance on December 30th, 2021, were slapped with several criminal charges by the court. The first accused person, Aldo Vishen, is facing only 1 count of abetment of crime, namely robbery. The 2 others, Patrick Beidu and Joseph Lord Ni Ajay Oninku, are being pressed with 4 charges. These includes conspiracy to commit a crime, attempted robbery, causing unlawful damage and murder, and attempt to commit a crime, robbery. The 2 other counts are causing unlawful damage and murder, or contrary to the Criminal Offence Act 1960, Act 29. Prosecutor Inspector Jennifer Champon, who read the facts of the case during their first appearance, said Aldo Vishen, aged 18 years, on December 22nd, ordered the boats for Patrick Beidu, 19 years, and Joseph Lord Ni Ajay Onunku, 17 years, because they were stranded. It later emerged that the 2 burnt the deceased, AB1 Ochibuaten, who is also a naval officer, after he resisted an attempt to take his vehicle away. They later poured petrol on the rider and set him ablaze. The driver sustained burns from the face and several parts of his body. He later died at a 37 military hospital. They confessed to committing the crime after their arrest. Here is lawyer Joseph Evans Abeka, of the first accused.
Well, this is the second time we've been to court. The prosecution is still saying that they are not done with the investigation, and they need an adjournment to finish the investigation. We, for example, pressed that the first accused person should be given bail, but the court, the second think it is fair to extend time for the prosecution to complete the investigation. So we have to agree on a date, so that, hoping on that day they will finish the investigation and we can take the next step. So far, all that they tell us, investigation is ongoing, but we don't know to the extent where they have reached. So we could hear the other lawyer present that whatever investigation, whatever state that they've reached, they should make us known. So since there's murder and looking at the case, well, when we come on the floor, then we will know whether the pace is okay for us or they are just hiding under the disguise of investigations ongoing. Bail or remand is the discretion of the court, looking at the circumstances. Well, they are positive to everything. Some might think that for their security and other things. As we are arguing that since he's in school and school has reopened, he needs to get back to school. So the court is the final arbiter, thinking on the circumstances, should give them some weeks to complete, particularly since they said they have not finished investigation. So the open investigation will be complete on that day. Then we will know whether indeed they want to give them bail or they still want to remand them. Then we will know the step to take. At least when investigation is over, investigation is over.
The news has brought sadness and fear among boat drivers in the Secondary Takrady metropolis. Meanwhile, the court has adjourned the case to Friday, February 4th, 2022. In Athalia Kwanza, Joy News, Secondary.
Broken and orphaned. That's the story of the only daughter of 38-year-old Abna Yewa, who was killed by a rampaging taxi being driven by a policeman at Atiko near Kaneshi. A total of 3 bystanders were knocked down by the speeding officer, who is reported to have been pursuing an errant trotro driver. More than 48 hours after the incident, Joy News sources say the officer, name withheld, is yet to be arrested and charged. We'll hear from the police shortly. First, though, my colleague Manuel Krante went to meet the daughter of the deceased victim, who can barely hold herself together.
Tears uncontrollable, with dreams shattered and heartbroken. That's the state in which I met Ernestina Yeboah, the 19-year-old daughter of Abena Yeboah, who was killed by a speeding vehicle at Atiko Junction near Kanishi. The vehicle, a Toyota Vitz taxi, was being driven by a police officer when it veered off onto the pavement.
My madam never me. So accident me see what my mommy place so. No, she said my mommy come. Remember. I'm a cockroach.
My madam called me to come because there had been an accident and she suspected my mother was hit. I was going to find a job because we've been struggling too much. My mom was a single mother even though my father is alive. So they went to the mortuary. They won't allow me to see my mother.
Police station and GP the me and I'm catching me say a busan for me no bass and I jam and so met me money. So no call much medium so mammy coffee.
Indeed, Ernestina has no idea how her mother died. But back at the scene of the incident, eyewitnesses say parts of her body got severed after she was crushed against a tree.
There were nails right here, and the car crushed her into the tree. She was pinned against the tree and her left leg was almost severed. It was totally shredded. But up until now, no police officer has been here to check anything. Do you think they will do this if she was one of them?
Physically, what is left of Ernestina's mom are her slippers and bloodstains, which are now covered by sand. But her memories, which keep replaying in her daughter's head, have made it impossible for her to catch any sleep, at least not in a wooden structure they lived.
Now, I am all alone. I couldn't sleep in the house. I went to pass the night with someone, but I did not even blink my eyes.
Ernestina cannot even begin to count her loss because all she had, her mother and guardian, is now history.
For now, I am all alone. I have no one to help me unless you help me. She was just 38 and me 19. I will be 20 in September.
19. September na coming 20.
The police have since launched investigations into the matter. But like many dependents of road crash victims, just a day after her mother's passing, Ernestina's hope of a better life has ended. Also, it seems. Manuel Crunting, Joy News, Accra.
Won't you join us when we're taking a break? To stay tuned in.
I'm sure you've heard this phrase more than once. In Africa, the systems don't work. Or rather, in Ghana, the systems don't work. Of course, that's a phrase loosely used by Ghanaians sometimes when they are frustrated by a process that otherwise should have been smooth and hassle-free. Take, for instance, the process of acquiring a meter to ensure that you get electricity running through your house. Many have complained about how cumbersome this otherwise simple process has been for them. Just to get a meter. Now, those who are successful most often have to know someone within the establishment to facilitate the process for them. There are so many instances I could point to, but I will spare you the details and just focus on one situation which has had many Ghanaians frustrated over the last few weeks. I'm talking about the subscriber identity module, or SIM card registration and re-registration exercise. Now, last year, the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization directed that all SIM cards be re-registered over a 6-month period spanning October 1, 2021 to March 31st, 2022 using the Ghana card. Now, the registration process requires that applicants trek to an office of a mobile network operator and physically go through the process of providing their data. And since that directive was announced, it's been nothing short of chaos and frustrations for subscribers.
I couldn't do it because after being through the line, they told me that I have to do some linking, and because I've done the linking yesterday, I cannot do it yesterday now, so I have to come next day.
The line, even the queue is not going. And so for me, I want to go home. I want to come later on, maybe next month. Because for me, I've already done the process on my phone, especially the caption of the fingers.
Imagine the wasted time that could have been spent productively elsewhere. Why must people suffer for such a simple exercise? So you ask people to engage in a national exercise that some have argued was not well thought through from the start. People standing in long queues are sometimes close to each other. The congestion even makes nonsense of our quest to ensure adherence to COVID protocols. Well, the complaints forced the telcos to rethink the strategy, and they suggested decentralizing the process.
We should be able to design a system again that enable some people to do some sales even with a biometric app. Because if we have a system in which I can put my finger on a particular device and then be able to link that device to the NIA data.
But a week after that assurance, we were back to square one because the problem still persisted. At many of the registration centers, the queues persisted. In some cases, the machines had either broken down or were frozen. And to make matters worse, the agents were only a few in number, handling hundreds of applicants. So the regulator, NCA, directed the mobile network operators to increase the number of agents, among many other things. So there's some pessimism about whether this may change anything. We wait to see. But the obvious question on the lips of many is that, could these challenges have been avoided? Did we think outside of the box enough? Our next door neighbor, Ivory Coast, also conducted a SIM registration exercise for their citizens in 2019. They used what they call the tap and go system. All applicants had to do was place their national identity cards on a mobile phone screen and enable the agent's preloaded software to complete the process. As simple as that. And why not? Mobile is all about convenience. And such an exercise must extend that efficiency to the customer. Now, here in Ghana, there are many advocating for an extension of the deadline, including some MPs who argue that so far less than 2 million cards have been successfully registered. Meanwhile, it's believed that there are over 40 million SIM cards active now as we speak. So why the waste? Why the haste? Should we not hasten slowly in order to meet the target of over 40 million applicants? Some have even gone so far to threaten to boycott the telcos by refusing to make calls if the directive on the registration is not rescinded.
Currently, the way this exercise has been planned, designed, implemented, executed, and is being processed, is being done in a way where it is quite obvious that the required stakeholder consultations or the required stakeholder activities did not take place in the most optimal manner possible.
So this is what the frustration felt by the people has driven them to do. It must not get to that point. Government and the telcos must collectively come up with a less laborious process that will encourage encourage, not deter people from partaking in this national exercise. Others have done it. Must we reinvent the wheel and make the citizens suffer needlessly?
Now, the biggest event on the African continent, the 2021 African Cup of Nations, is ongoing in Cameroon. As we speak, Ghana is ahead of Gabon in the match. And of course, it's a showpiece that excites many Ghanaians because of the participation of the senior national football team, the Black Stars. But unlike previous events, the enthusiasm among soccer-crazy Ghanaian fans has dipped, especially during the upbeat to the particular game. This situation, many traders say, has affected the patronage of Black Stars branded Paraphernalia. Beverly Broom has been to the market and has come through with this report.
We are in the AFCON season, and yes, Ghana is participating. But unfortunately, the craze that comes with such tournaments is gradually vanishing. What could be the problem? And how is this development going to affect the sale of football paraphernalia?
The bubbly euphoria on some streets in Accra, specifically Osu, Kwame Nkrumah Circle and its surrounding areas, has been quiet, despite the participation of the Black Stars in the ongoing AFCON. The display of Black Stars paraphernalia in the national colors red, gold and green is missing as compared to previous tournaments. At Osu, we could count only about 4 vendors displaying branded Black Star souvenirs for sale. The traders tell Joy Business the low enthusiasm among football fanatics has resulted in the low patronage of the branded Black Stars paraphernalia, a situation they attribute to the abysmal performance of the Black Stars in recent games and also the loss to the Atlas Lions of Morocco in their opening game.
The selling of jersey before we started the tournament, it was going on a while. But since we lost our first match, they've lost interest in buying, patronizing it.
During the time of Asamoah, Asian and the likes, sales was good anytime Ghana featured in a tournament, but sales is bad due to the bad performance of the Black Stars. Before the AFCON, sales of souvenirs was high, not because Ghana had qualified to participate, but due to Davido and Stonebwoy's display of flags in their music video. Our football is not encouraging at all. Customers have assured us of hike in sales if the Black Stars are able to qualify to the final.
The last time Ghana won the AFCON was in 1982 when the Black Stars beat Libya via a penalty shootout. 40 years down the lane, some Ghanaians believe the team has lost the stem to be counted among the best, hence their loss of interest in purchasing Black Stars branded souvenirs to rally support for the team.
The confidence in the team is actually down now, so you risk watching actually.
As for these people, they are just going to disgrace us and come back, so I don't have time for that one.
So even if we qualify to the next stage,
one day, hallelujah, but me buying those, oh no, I will not buy and support anything. What I know is they will just go and disgrace us and come back. As for that one, I know for sure.
You see, before they started AFCON, I don't think we had a lot of trust in the Black Stars, because we believe at least when they go there with this crop of players, we don't have any hope in them. That is why we don't waste our time to go and buy any paraphernalia to support them.
Obviously, the euphoria is down and sales, according to traders, is bad, and it will certainly take some victories from the Black Stars to lift back the spirit. For Joy Business, I am Beverly Broom.
Well, the head of computer science department at the Valley View University, John Kingsley Arthur, has indicated that Ghana's prospect in engineering and information technology is positive. According to him, his outfit will in the coming years support efforts at ensuring economic growth and national development. He was speaking at the 20th anniversary and ICT Expo at the Valley View University, of which we have more in this report.
The ICT Expo was to create and send a signal on what the Computer Science and Engineering Department of the Valley View University has done over the years. It was also to showcase how the country could use artificial intelligence in solving economic issues. Here's head of the Department of Computer Science at the Valley View University, John Kingsley Arthur.
The very essence of the ICT Expo, number one, is to actually send a strong signal on the position of Valley View University in contributing to the socio-economical transformation in Ghana. So by this, we have trained students across of 4 years, and then the students have developed some set of software applications, and then equally some intelligent hardware systems that are able to solve national problems. I should think we are making some headway by the fact that all of the current institutions that we have are all running computer science or running information technology. It giving a clue that they have seen the need to move towards the technology-driven industrialization transformation. So that is a key indicator that we have realized how important this is, and then we have made the attempt.
The expo will aid students from senior high to tertiary level to be well equipped in the engineering and IT world. James Ishen's report for Joy Business.
Now, the Bosai Group, the majority shareholders of Ghana Bauxite Company, is offloading its shares to another private investor. The yet-to-be-named investor is taking 80% shares in the transaction deemed to be in the interest of the mine. The Deputy Minister for Land and Natural Resources, George Miracle Duke, has assured the process facilitated by government will not affect the workforce. Nana Aljima was at the meeting between the Ministry of Land and Natural Resources and staff of the company and has filed this report.
Exploration of bauxite at Awaso started in 1940. For about a decade, the company posted losses but made efforts at reducing the loss. Following intervention of Ghana Integrated Aluminium Development Corporation as government representative in the company and challenges with renewal of lease, the Bosai Group opted out of the business. Mr. Mirkuduka explains processes taken by Bosai to offload their shares.
We've gone through all the processes. The future is bright, and in due course, the person or the entity that Bosai offloaded the shares to will be made known by the Sector Minister, Honorable Samuel Abujinapo. So I'm reassuring you that the process hasn't been truncated. We are on course. All the legal processes are being followed. Bosai, going through all the company protocols of handing over their shares to any interested party that they are, will find a way of acknowledging. They are doing so, and government is also assisting them to do so.
There have been assurances of increase in staff strength, contrary to speculation of job losses.
This company is in no way retrenching any workforce or any worker. We are with you, or rather deepen and strengthen and enlarge the work base of this company.
Meanwhile, staff of GBC have welcomed government intervention. Frederick Sarkodie Pepra is head of finance.
The main difficulty we had at the time was the lease renewal. Now we know the information that has been delivered today that the lease has been looked into, and therefore we know we are not going home. So we want to thank them for what they've done for us, and we continue to remember what they have done for about 5,000 people not to go home, those who depend on this company, directly or indirectly. More than 5,000 people depend on this company. So if this company did not collapse, then we thank God for that, and we thank them too for the role that they've played. Thank you.
For Joy News, Nana Aljima, Kumasi.
That'll be it for business. We'll leave you with a summary of international business news. Do stay with us.
Segment here on the Joint News Prime with me, Rick Wampofo. Just before we started the segment, Gabon struck the very late equalizer and we're entering added time in that match. Ghana won, Gabon won, and the Black Stars definitely do need a goal in the latter stages to keep their hopes of qualifying to the next round. But we'll be keeping you up to date on what happens in that game. But whilst we wait, King Faisal suffered their first home defeat of the season after losing against Kerala United in week 13 of the Ghana Premier League at the Kumasi Sports Stadium on Friday afternoon.
King Faisal kicking us off in this match day 13 encounter here. Good recovery as they come this time from the near side. Richard Wiafi lays on a pass. It's looking good for King Faisal. It's floated into the box. Goalkeeper comes out, beat into it.
Trying to look for the run of Morrison.
Umar Bashiru now has created some chance. He's still going into the 18-yard box. And it's the first goal for the visitors here this afternoon. Kerala United have shot themselves.
And look at that brilliance. Beautiful turn here. Inside out.
And that's a spritey run there down the left flank. It's looking good as they come forward. King Faisal. Opportunities being created into the 18-yard box. They go.
Yeah, Osman here looking for the run. It was a good pass. Brilliant delivery into a very dangerous position.
Oh, that's a half-time whistle. Kerala lead by one at this stage of the competition. This is Yaya now. It's long, it's deep. Header is on target. Goalkeeper scores full marks with the defending. Get themselves into goal-scoring opportunities and chances. But when they come, they do take them. As this one comes through, and he's brought down. Flag was up.
And Koku was saying, with that brilliant pass, locating Kubi will do the 1-2 again.
Yeah.
Went past goalkeeper Frank Boateng, brought down in the process.
In he goes, 1-2-3 against Frank Boateng. Easy does it. There's a roller coaster now for Kerala. Decorates himself with a brace.
Yeah, there, just look at the composure and the technique. Sent the goalkeeper the wrong way.
Faisal, of course, GNPC for Kerala. Shot is fired on target by Yaya. Goalkeeper did well.
There, by the post.
Forward now. Referee believes that we've had enough. Maxwell Owusu signifies the end of the match for Kerala to secure their first away points and their first away victory.
Well, head coach of King Faisal, Nuruddin Ahmed, has attributed his side's defeat to Kerala to tactical indiscipline.
I think that we were not tactically good enough
I think that we have lost some power. Maybe it could be that the fatigue is setting in. We need to look at all those factors. But I think that Kerala were better. They stopped us from playing our annual game, and they were having more men behind the ball, and they utilized their chances. We created many chances, but we squandered them. And so it's a very worrying issue. But that is football. You have to move on. And so these two defeats has created some grief in our midst. We will go back and then, resolve it and get going.
For a struggling team like Kerala, who barely cannot even pick point away from home, but managed to pick 3 points here against a Kinfaisa side that had not lost a game at the Baba Sports Stadium.
That is football. Sometimes the struggling teams, they can put a surprise. And so that is we didn't underrate them. We played our best, but our best was not enough. And so they have done well, and we need to look at what is other. I believe that maybe fatigue is setting in our boys, and then we need to beef up the team since we have in this open window. So we need to bring some players to beef up the team. I can see that there is fatigue now.
Let's now check out fixtures of week 13 of the Ghana Premier League. So Kinfaisa are losing at home to Kerala United by 2-0. Brekum Chelsea face Asante Kotoko on Saturday, and then on Sunday Hearts of Oak face 11 Wonders. Aduana play Accra Lions. RTU face Gold Stars as Wafa play Dreams. Mediama host Great Olympics as Elmina Sharks travel to face Ashanti Gold. Legon Cities play Bechem United. Well, the game between Ghana and Gabon ended 1-1, and so the Black Stars would have to win against Comoros and hope that they qualify as one of the best third-place teams in the tournament. My name is Oreku Ampofo.
All right, so we're just about wrapping up the bulletin, but I brought Oreku Ampofo back so we clarify what's happening as far as our group is concerned in the AFCON. So you were indicating that, okay, so Ghana has 1 point. Yeah. Morocco, they have 6. Yeah. And then Gabon, they have 4. Yeah. So what happens in the next match if Ghana wins? Or what will it take for Ghana to qualify?
Well, for Ghana to go past Gabon, as you see, the goal difference now is Ghana -1, and then Gabon still stay on +1. And so there's a 2-goal swing. Head-to-head, which is the first tiebreaker, is tied because there was a draw. And so Ghana have to hope that Morocco score Gabon and score them really well, and then Ghana beats Comoros to be able to qualify as second. So they have to have a better goal difference than Gabon. Worst case scenario, if they're not able to catch up with Gabon on goal difference, 4 points still could be enough.
That's as if we win against Comoros.
Yeah, if we win against Comoros, and you still could qualify as one of the best third-place teams.
Okay, so that's where we get to do the calculations. So you can bring out your calculators and work this thing out. It gets a bit complicated, but thank you very much, Oreku. And that's it for the Bulletin. I'm Israel Live. Thank you very much for watching. You have a good night.